Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Through the Storm podcast, formerly known as The Other Side of Addiction. Hey, we got a really good show for you guys today, but before I introduce the guest and give our title, I just want to give out a huge thank you to Dave and Susan Kenny with Emergo Academy. That's Emergo Academy. They are actually my two coaches who are out of Canada, but they are also one of my main sponsor for this show. So if you guys are interested in becoming a crisis and recovery coach, I highly suggest you check them out. If you're not, I still highly suggest to check them out. You guys have heard me say this a lot on the show. If it wasn't for the training that I took and learning how to sit with my emotions, learning how to sit with life's, I'll just put it how you guys know how I put it, with life shitballs that get thrown at you sometimes. I don't know if I would have made it through all the stuff that I've made it through. So again, guys, if you're interested, check out Dave and Susan Kenny at Emergo Academy, Emergo Academy.com. So today we're going to be talking about mind, body, and spirit. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this title because this is right up my alley. And today's guest is Peter McLaughlin. Peter, thank you so much for reaching out to me and being interested on being on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when I read your bio on that, I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely someone I'd like to have on my show because it's,
Cool.
again, you heard me say at the beginning, it's just right up my alley. I love talking about stuff like this. And as we get in the show, again, Peter, feel free to talk about your YouTube channel and some other stuff because
Mhm.
I really do believe in promoting each other and whatever we can do to get people to come to you and watch your YouTube stuff, man, I'm all for it.
Okay.
So, what is mind, body, and spirit to Mr. Peter?
Well, I think the first two are pretty self-evident in our culture, especially body. We're so wedded to the physical plane that when we think of healing, we generally think of healing the body. And with the mind, at least in the sort of modern period, it's only been since Sigmund Freud that people started even looking at the mind. And spirit to me is something that is largely left out of any kind of healing conversation in the world. And Einstein said if you want to solve a problem, you can't solve it at the level at which it was created. You have to go up a level. For me, I can't think of a higher level than the level of spirit. And so the work that I do has to involve that. And I feel like that's one of the things that's a differentiator. And you know what's really kind of interesting is I'm in the process of kind of pivoting how I do my work. And I was using some AI. I was using Claude to help with marketing copy and some other stuff. And Claude's like, you can't talk about the spiritual stuff. It's too weird. It's not validated. It's no scientific proof. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine.
Oh my
You know,
God.
you're a machine, and it's been programmed this way because that's how our culture's been programmed. You know, and it's fine to have evidence-based peer review, all this other stuff, even though half of the studies have been proven to be made up and false. So I'll put that to the side and just say that to me, it's important to reawaken the spiritual part of us because that's the most powerful for sure. And I'm not saying that you should ignore by any means the other two elements, but we need to bring the spirit back into the concept of healing in order to be as healthy as possible. And my God, just look around at how unhealthy our population is,
Right.
which kind of coincides with the decline of people going to church and having God in their life, for example. And I have to believe that that has some kind of impact.
Yeah.
We've been taught to worship at the altar of materialism. And I'm not against capitalism. I'm not against owning nice things. That's fine. But it shouldn't be our religion.
Yeah. Amen to that 100%. And I feel, at least for me, my experience, the more spirituality that I brought into my life, the stronger my mind and body became. And it's just worked for me. I mean, I'm a big hiker, and even though I've lost my leg, I've slowly been getting back into my hiking again. And a lot of people who know me around here, I do videos every once in a while when I'm on top of our beautiful Wasatch Mountains, and I'm like, welcome to my church. That is my church. That is my altar.
Yeah,
That's what God created. No man,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and it really increases my spirituality and my spirit. It makes me feel in a really good place, and I feel so comfortable there.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. I was just listening to this doctor named Zach Bush, fascinating man, and he was talking about how if you go camping for 3 days, you totally reset your immune system. I didn't know that, but in the times that I've been camping, I used to go camping when I lived in the state of New York in the Adirondack Mountains. And we would go kayak camping, meaning that we would take out two kayaks. We would fill the kayaks with everything that we needed for 3 days, 2 nights. And it's just such an amazing feeling. I'm sure you've had it too, when you're literally outdoors with no electricity for 3 days, how you feel. It's incredible. You think
Amen.
this is how our ancestors probably were most of the time if you go back far enough.
Yeah. It's crazy that you said that too, Peter, because I was just talking to a friend of mine last night. He just came back from a week river trip and he invited me. Unfortunately, work is just kind of crazy right now and I just wasn't able to get away. But um, I says, man, how was it? And he's telling me all about all this cool stuff, and how he felt inside. And he's a very spiritual person as well. And he goes, Al, I've really struggled coming back. And I'm like, really? What do you mean? He says, it's just like I had so much peace in my life. And then all of a sudden I come back and it's like all this chaos just all of a sudden. He's like, and I've been doing everything I can to keep that out, right? Because
Mm,
we're both kind of that same way. We do our best to stay away from all the craziness that goes on out there, and
hmm.
stay in our own little bubble. I'm happy in my own bubble. He's happy in his own little bubble. But he goes, yeah, man, it's just I'm really having to work on it because it's like I'm getting hit from every direction of all this chaotic crap. And
Yeah.
he's like, I could not, he goes, one thing that I realized is I did not realize how peaceful and how in tune I came with myself when I was out there in nature.
Hmm. It makes perfect sense. I
Yeah.
mean, Nikola Tesla, the genius of the 20th century, who is responsible for most of the things that we use every day, said if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibration. And you can say that when you're surrounded by God's creation, you're not surrounded by man's creation, you're subjected to and you will harmonize with the frequency of the trees and the leaves and the water and the soil and the sun.
Yeah.
And it probably doesn't take long for our bodies to naturally entrain to that. There's something called the Schumann resonance that's a 7.83 hertz, and that's the frequency that the earth vibrates at. And the way our bodies are constructed is that we will entrain with or we will vibrate at the frequency of the dominant frequency in our environment. Clearly, it's supposed to be the Schumann resonance. It's not supposed to be our television set or our air conditioning unit, right?
Or cell
Or
phones.
billboards or cell phones. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what is the cost, I wonder, to us by being entrained to these aberrant frequencies rather than to the frequency of the earth?
Yeah, and that's very well put. During the summertime, I loved wearing flip-flops, right? Wintertime, I've got my
Yep.
cowboy boots and stuff on, and since I lost my leg, pretty much I've just been wearing tennis shoes and that. And I was at my granddaughter's soccer game about 3 weeks ago, and I'm watching my daughter kicks off her flips flops and she's putting her feet in the grass and she's
Hmm.
kind of that same type of thinking, right? And my son-in-law was doing the same thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, wish I could do that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I still got one real foot. So
Yeah.
I ended up taking my tennis shoe off and my sock off. And seriously, Peter, I cannot believe how good it felt to be able just to sit there and just move my foot around in the grass. And
Hmm.
I feel like I was getting that frequency. Some people may say that's a little woo-woo, but I don't care. For me, it just kind of seemed like it just calmed me down and it just felt so nice to be able to have my foot in this grass and just feeling everything, because we take so much for granted instead of just really seeing the true blessings that are around us.
And they're all free.
And they're all free. Yes,
There,
absolutely.
the I want to comment on the on having your feet in the grass. There's a book that I read a number of years ago called Grounding, and I got into this for a while. I even bought a multimeter so I could test it. It's not woo woo. You can get a multimeter and you can test and determine how many volts of electricity are going through your body any place in your house. And what I found is in my bedroom, this is when I was living in upstate New York, just a normal bedroom, sitting on my bed, there were about 3.5, 4 volts going through my body at any given time. And then I created a grounding mat. And when I put my feet on the grounding mat, it went down to just about 0.
Hmm.
And you can test and do this the same way. If you're standing on the ground, you are grounded to the earth. The earth is like a giant battery because it's struck by like 20,000 lightning strikes every second or something like that.
Wow.
And and you start receiving negative electrons from the earth, which bond or pair with the positive electrons in your body. And the positive electrons are considered to be toxic for us, that we get by being in touch with man-made electricity. And when this happens, your blood starts to unclump because your blood will clot in the presence of these positive man-made electrons. And people's pain starts to go down because inflammation goes down. They start sleeping better. But it is not woo-woo. It is the opposite of woo-woo. It is literally, you can validate it with a multimeter.
Wow. Well, and Tesla figured that out umpteen years ago, right? I mean,
Sure.
he had all that stuff down, and it's crazy because he didn't get a lot of credit for what he's done, because you just said earlier, most of the stuff we use was because of what he figured out.
Yes, and it's only been in the last 50 years. I don't know how old you are, but we're probably about the same age. When I grew up, it was very common to have leather-soled shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I had rubber-soled sneakers, but for people to wear leather-soled shoes, that was very common. And because your feet sweat, the leather-soled shoes, through the sweating of your feet, will conduct electricity through the earth so you're getting some. But at some point, it was like in the 90s or something, even dress shoes started to go to a rubber sole. And now you just don't have that connection to the earth at all. So it is vital for us to get outside without our shoes on. And the best possible place is in the ocean, because now you're immersed in all these minerals that are conducting electricity, and your whole body is grounded, not just the soles of your feet.
Interesting.
And how do people feel when they go to the beach?
Right.
It says this in the book. They literally say when they come back from vacation, "Oh man, I felt like I was so, at peace. I was grounded. I was rested. I was calm. I feel like I recharged my batteries." They're speaking in electrical terms because it's true.
Yeah. That's amazing. Huh? I never thought of that with the ocean, but yeah, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing I discovered with my multimeter is that where I had those 3 to 4 volts going through my body just sitting on my bed, that when I put my hands on my laptop, if it was plugged in, it went to about 33 volts.
Oh, wow.
If it was unplugged, it was, I can't remember, but it was far less. It was maybe a third of that.
Huh. That is
I mean,
really,
it's the same thing. If you walked over to a lamp that's switched on and you put your hand on it, you'll probably have 20 or 30 volts going through you.
yeah.
At least according to my multimeter. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. This is just what I was discovering. And if I had my hands on my laptop and I put my feet on the grounding mat that I made for myself, which was grounded in the ground plug of an electrical outlet, it went down to almost 0 volts, because now the energy's passing through me, going into the grounding sheet. The grounding sheet is going outside into a copper rod that's in the ground. That's the way all buildings are constructed.
Yeah.
And if appliances have to be grounded, what about us?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no kidding. I never thought of that either. Holy cow.
Yeah, if it screws up the behavior of an appliance, why wouldn't it screw up the behavior of us? And that's one of the things the guy talked about in this book, in the grounding book, which is written by 3 authors, one of whom is like a cardiologist. And they're speaking from very scientific, practical, proven terms about why it's so important for human beings to ground. This is not woo-woo at all. And believe me, I'm like the king of it. I do past life regressions. I have people meet their spirit guides. I mean, you name it. But and we can call that woo woo. But the grounding, no, that's science.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, I think that's why so many people, well, I won't say a lot, but there are quite a few that do enjoy going out to like the parks and different things and taking their shoes off and just
Mhm.
feeling that. And you know this too. Everything puts off energy, right? Everything
Yep.
around us is putting off some type of energy. And with the earth having the majority of it, my gosh. Yeah, and some of those people who have told me it's woo, I'm like, yeah, well, okay, it's all good. I don't care what they think. I'm just doing what's good for me. You know, they can do whatever is good for them. That's for sure. What what got you into doing what you were doing, Peter? I mean, was there something that happened in your life where you just thought, you know what, I'm going to investigate this a little further, or maybe you was battling with some kind of trauma or something where you're like, I got to get this thing figured out. What got you to do what you're doing?
It was a crisis. So um, in 2001, when the attacks happened on 9/11, I was working. I was working about a block and a half from the Trade Center,
Mm,
and I had wanted to be a volunteer firefighter for a while, but our kids were really little. And in early 2003, we moved from about an hour north of New York City in New York State to Connecticut. And my wife said, "You know what? I think this is the time when you can go and do this." I was like, "Okay, great. I'll go do it." And I felt like it was something that I could do. It was something I'd wanted to do, but it was something that was also spurred by 343 firefighters getting killed on 9/11. And I went, and the first thing they have you do, they do a background check, but then they have you do an extensive physical. And I did this extensive physical, and the doctor said to me, "You're in really great shape for your age." I was 41 at the time. "Come back and give blood." I gave the blood, and then the alarm bells started going off, getting all these calls and texts and everything. And I finally talked to someone at the doctor's office, and they said, "We think that you have Lyme disease and a rare form of leukemia called chronic lymphocytic leukemia." So it were those twin diagnoses, and more importantly, all of the fear and bewilderment that went along with this that eventually led me by degrees to becoming trained as a hypnotherapist because I wanted to learn how to control my mind. Because with all of the research I had been doing, I had learned how powerful the mind is in controlling the body. And then it was after practicing for a while that I said, wait a second, there's another level above this, and that's the level of the spirit that we were talking about at the outset.
wow. You know, and you, I'm glad that you touched on this brain thing because that's how Emergo Academy trains all their people, right? It's about the brain first approach, is understanding how that brain starts working, you know, and it's something that again that has helped me to learn how to recognize thoughts that you really don't need to be thinking about because it's negative stuff and learning how to change that around more in a positive way
Mm-hmm.
and opening up the blinders, right? Taking those blinders off. Because I think the majority of us walk around looking at life through a damn straw. You know, we're missing so much. All we see is just what's in front of us. But when we can widen our vision and open up a little bit more, I think we're able to and start understanding what our thoughts are. You know, I read the book Conscious Creator, and I read it twice, and I really started paying attention to what my thoughts were, whether I'm driving down the road or just outside walking or whatever. And I realized probably 90+% of my thoughts were negative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just life, right? Life is being thrown at us from every damn direction. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it took me a while to figure it out. But once I did, slowly but surely I was able to start turning it around because I'd start recognizing, oh my gosh, why am I thinking this? I don't want to think this. So I was able to turn it around. And I went to a class and this lady did this little example to show how fast we can change whatever it is that we are thinking. She had everybody get up. We moved all our chairs. We got in this big, huge circle. She shut the lights off. She says, I want everyone to draw an imaginary circle right in front of you. And she goes, at the count of three, when I say three, I want you to step into that circle and I want you to think of something that is makes you sad or gets you very angry.
Yeah, I've done this exercise myself.
Do it? Yeah, and then of
It's
course,
from neurolinguistic programming.
yeah, yeah, and then they do one where you do the same thing, but you think of something positive, right? And I remember looking around the room after the negative one, and myself, both my fists were clenched. I could feel myself grinding my teeth because I was gritting my
Hmm.
teeth. I don't remember what it was I was thinking about, but then I remember doing the opposite and having like happy tears in the
Hmm.
corners of my eye and
Hmm.
smiling. And you could see it all around the room. And she was like, that's how fast we can change our things. And it's just because of this right here.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
So I'm sure you look at it this way, Peter. We actually have more control of this than what we think, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yes, we do, we do. And so much of what's going on in your mind, I mean, it's estimated that you have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and that you're really only aware of about 5% of those thoughts, that the other 95% are running on autopilot. And I don't know if you've heard of Joe Dispenza, but he's a pretty great thinker on these things. And he talks about how your future is basically an artifact of the past, because it's all of the thoughts that were created in your past that just get repeated over and over again, and thoughts that are repeated turn into emotions and actions and outcomes that produces basically a predictable future.
Yeah.
And that my practice is built around the concept of root cause healing, and that would be the healing of trauma, because it's in response to trauma that we create a lot of what become limiting beliefs for us. Because if you think about it, the response to a trauma could be the response of a 3-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 19-year-old. It could be the response of a soldier in combat. And those responses probably really served these people at those moments in time with what was happening and what was available to them in terms of staying alive.
Yeah.
But later in life, those same responses, conditioned responses, are holding them back in some way. And you have to, in my opinion, heal the old trauma in your mind so that that part of your mind, the unconscious part, can stand down when it realizes that this is no longer a clear and present danger. And once it stands down, it's easier to change the thoughts that are going on. You're not doing battle with them anymore.
Yeah. Very, very well put. And a lot of this stuff you're saying, it's bringing so many things back to me. So at the end of last year, I was really struggling with feeling like I was being rejected. And I felt this feeling pretty much the majority of my life, right? And it was really putting me in a really bad spot. And I had a friend invite me up to Idaho to her cabin and just go out and get in some nature. And she was going to show me around the sites and area, and which was really good. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go there and see if it can help me clear my mind and get some things figured out. And I felt really relaxed. It was awesome. I'm out in nature. I'm out in the pines and just seeing waterfalls, being around the rivers. However, when I left, I felt all that stuff come back. And I started getting into my training going, okay, instead of telling myself to stop thinking about it, because if I tell you to stop thinking about a pink elephant, you'll continue to think about a pink elephant, right? I started asking my brain, help me figure out why I'm thinking of this. Help me find the answer to this. And it took me a couple weeks. This all the way went this went back to when I was 7. And you just mentioned it about, it could go back to a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. It went all the way back when I was 7. So I was diagnosed with a disease called Perthes at age 7. It's like a form of a polio. And I remember walking in the doctor's office. I didn't walk out. They put me in a wheelchair immediately. And, weeks later, I was having this brace put on my leg, like a Forrest Gump brace, but instead of on both legs, I had it on one leg. And I remember at recess in school and also being teased all the time, right? Because I was the crippled kid. not being picked for like recess games like kickball or things like that. I was always the last one because no one wanted the crippled kid. Not realizing what that did to my subconscious back then that I had been
Hmm.
carrying throughout all my adulthood. Here I am in my 60s, and it took till for me to be in my 60s, and thank goodness to my training and learning different things that I figured that out. Now I know when that emotion kicks in, I know where it came from. And you just
Hmm.
said it, right? I'm able to go, no, wait a minute. This is not really how it is. This is my subconscious doing its best to protect me, but also at the same time, our subconscious can also hurt us.
It can, and the important distinction to make is that it's never doing it on purpose.
Right.
It is its motivation is to protect you.
Mhm.
And if it's trying to protect you against a threat that no longer exists, it can feel like it's sabotaging you. So, one of the examples I like to use is if a woman was sexually assaulted at some point, and it's later in life, decades later, and she's overweight and she's trying to lose weight. And she goes onto a diet plan. She does all these different things, exercise, what have you, and she starts to lose the weight, and she's dropping pounds, and then all of a sudden she binge eats and breaks it. She might describe that as self-sabotage. But what could really be going on is the subconscious mind, which has no concept of time. Everything is now to the subconscious. Might feel threatened, like, oh my God, you're losing this weight. We're losing the armor that protects us from the outside world. Maybe it perceives that if you lose the weight, you're going to be more desirable, and we don't want that
Right.
because we don't want you to be attacked again. That's actually a loving, protective impulse rather than, oh, how can I mess with you today? I just want you to be miserable, so I'm gonna cause you to binge eat. No, no, it's trying to protect against a threat usually that no longer exists. And so the solution is to heal the incident that created the dynamic in the first place, which is in the subconscious mind. Once that's healed, the subconscious can stand down and no longer try to block you. President Lincoln said during this American Civil War, a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's the same with us.
Yeah.
You're not going to win if you try to fight yourself.
Yeah, you usually end up losing and causing more, right? Because that battle is endless.
Al, ironically, we generally create the very thing we're trying to prevent.
Yes.
So the jealous, fearful man that his wife will leave him tends to behave in ways that drives his wife away from him. Let me see your phone. Who just texted you? I saw the way that guy looked at you. Is something going on between you? She's gonna be, whoa. He's gonna inadvertently push her away.
Yep.
Why do people say when you're up high, don't look down? Because they don't want you thinking about falling.
Yes.
Because you're more likely to fall if you're thinking about falling and obsessing about falling. We generally get more of what we put our energy towards.
Yeah.
If
Amen
you're
to
if you're
that.
putting your energy towards lack, like a lack of money, you generally get more of that. I think this is one of the reasons, I know there's many others, but one of the reasons if you look at, say, the upper class, the people with money, born into money, surrounded by money and all the trappings of money, and the people who are born into poverty, surrounded by people in poverty, surrounded by all the trappings of poverty, why they tend to stay in those places. Because that's what's in your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes, in essence, your expectation. And that's what you're focused on, mostly unconsciously, and so you tend to get more of it.
Yeah. Well, it's how that universe is working, right? I mean, it's that energy. We do bring in, I think, what we really focus on. A lot of people think I can never get myself out of this. I went up and visited a patient up at Encompass, who had an amputated leg, and she actually has a farm in Wyoming, or not a farm, but a ranch in Wyoming. And she was talking about, she goes, yeah, I guess my horse riding days are over with, huh? And I'm like, no, why are you saying that? And she had above the knee, so almost three-quarters of her leg is gone. And I says, well, what makes you think that you're not ever going to ride a horse again? And she goes, well, I'm going to have this big old prosthetic thing and stuff like that. And I'm like, no. I says, do you really want to ride a horse? And she goes, yeah, I'd love nothing more. I'm like, then ride the damn horse. Put your mind to it. It may take some time and learning. You may have to change some things, but go
Hmm.
ride the damn horse. It doesn't mean that you're not able to, and I says, I'm just telling you that from my experience from this past about year and a half, right? I remember telling myself when I heard I was going to lose my leg, the nevers started creeping in. Well, I'm never going to go hike again. I'm never going to kick the soccer ball with my grandkids again. I'm never going to drive my truck again. I'm doing it all,
Hmm.
and all of it. I mean, this past Easter, I was out in the backyard at my grandkids' house kicking the soccer ball with them. It's
Wow.
different.
Yeah.
It's definitely changed, but I'm still kicking the soccer ball with my grandkids.
Yeah.
And, even with hiking, I told myself that by a certain day, I will go on a hike. And I don't even care if I go a half a mile,
Hmm.
long as I can go on that hike.
Yeah.
I missed it by about a week, but I did about a mile and a half. And
Wow.
here about a month ago, I did my first 8.2 mile hike.
Wow, that's impressive.
And I really do feel again, it's because of this up here, right? It's
Hmm.
where is it that do I spent the majority of my life playing a victim. I wasn't going to play a victim anymore. I was going to
Mm.
decide how my life was going to go.
Wow.
And I hope when I sit down with somebody who loses a limb, I hope I can get them to understand it because somebody did that for me. Somebody came and saw me when I lost my leg,
Mm.
double amputee. This cute little bubbly blonde gal about my age comes walking in with a big smile on her face. And I just signed up for their bike ride. I'm going to do a 16-mile bike ride on August 29th. I just signed up for that. So
Wow.
I'm searching for a bike now, right, to be able to go out and do this bike race. And
Yeah.
my daughter just signed up yesterday to join me. So I'm
Oh,
really
that's
looking
awesome.
forward to it. But again, I think it's just how we perceive things and how we look at things. And one thing that I've got to say, and please touch on this, is God has given us the ability to do whatever it is we want to do. I mean, and we've got chance after chance after chance. I like to say we're lucky that life isn't like baseball, three strikes and you're out. We got as many strikes as we can handle, right? And we still have a choice to decide which direction that we want to go, even if sometimes those choices are the wrong choice, but we can learn from those to get us back on track to go somewhere else.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would say that we learn more from adversity and we learn more from pain than when everything's going perfectly.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
I've come to believe that the struggles that all human beings endure on this planet are perhaps a feature, not a bug. Because if we didn't have those struggles, then we wouldn't really learn very much. And I think that that's why we're here. I think we're here to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
And
I,
my other theory is that if whoever's listening to this, undoubtedly, because we all do, have certain kinds of struggles, certain kinds of adversity. And my belief from pretty early on in the diagnosis that I got was, if this is here to teach me a lesson, then the sooner I learn the lesson, the sooner I can graduate from the second grade and go on to the third grade.
I love that. I love that. And, and even going back to that, how did you get through it? I mean, I asked you how you got into doing what you were doing, and you talked about the crisis, but really, what was your steps of getting through that to get to where you're at today? Because we never really did finish on that.
There, this was again in the wake of 9/11,
Okay.
and it was it was very real for me because, as I say, I worked a block and a half from the World Trade Center. I worked on Wall Street, and I had a couple of years earlier, worked in the South Tower. And and I was only on like the 16th floor or something, but I can recall that this one summer day there was a electrical storm or something and the power went out. And we had to evacuate from the trade center down the emergency stairs and everything. And what a cluster it was. And nobody was panicked because the building had been hit, had been attacked. It was just the power was out. And it took a long time to get down those 16 floors. Anyway, I can remember in the wake of 9/11 listening to a terrorism expert who was saying, here's how you can deal with the fear of terrorism, which you can then apply to these other things. And one of the steps that I can recall him saying was to learn everything you can about your adversary. Step 2, prepare yourself. Make yourself stronger in some way. And 3, take action. And so those steps were still in my head when it came to this whole, scary diagnoses. And I remember thinking, I don't want to run from this. I want to stare it in the face. Kind of like the name of your through the storm, towards the problem rather than away from it, which I think has the effect of making us stronger when we go towards the thing that we're afraid of. And I'm not telling people to go, do really super dangerous things, but there is wisdom in all of this. So that was part of it, was actually when I garnered the courage to go toward it, when I tried to learn as much as I could about it, when I took on the philosophy that life is happening for us, it's not happening to us. Mm-hmm. Even if we don't understand why something is happening, even if it's super painful, there is, I believe, an argument, and it's ultimately faith, to believe that it's happening for an important reason. And this is the hardwired question everybody has. When something horrible happens, the first thing that they cry out is, why?
Why me?
Yeah. I think we're supposed to ask that question. But I don't think it's supposed to be a rhetorical question. I think we're supposed to go on a journey to discover the answer to the question, because in going on the journey, we learn whatever it was we were supposed to learn. And once that happens, we don't need the thing anymore.
Yeah.
So, the fire department for me, I did go on to become a firefighter, and that was a big part of it too. Because you're never alone when you do anything. You do a shit job, you're always doing it with somebody else. You don't go into a house that's on fire alone. You always go in at least with one other person. You never operate a hose line unless you've got one or two other people with you. You've got other people around you, and that, I think, gives you a kind of strength too. And I also was encountering people and working with people who were probably having the worst day of their life. And it put things in perspective. Going to a motor vehicle accident when I had been obsessed about myself, and there's, two dead young men at the scene, 23 and 18 years old. Bang. Puts things in perspective. Yeah. In a way that is visceral rather than simply theoretical. And I guess I'm coming back in my mind to the learning as much as you can and then taking action. I think, and I don't know if there's a distinction between men and women here, and if so, how great the distinction is, but I did learn recently that women's nervous systems are soothed by oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. So if you hug someone, you both get oxytocin. If a woman's holding or breastfeeding a baby, she's releasing oxytocin. When people are having sex and being intimate, they're releasing oxytocin. If you're patting your dog, you're getting oxytocin. And what I had learned was that women's nervous systems are calmed primarily through oxytocin. whereas men's nervous systems are calmed primarily through dopamine. Dopamine would be released in your body when you're chopping wood, when you're going for that hike, when you're playing a sport, when you're going for something in your business. So again, I'm not sure how this would play out with these kinds of traumas, but I think for me, the taking action part that the expert on terrorism had recommended as part of the 3 steps, taking action actually helped calm me down. Because in those situations, I think that we, once again, are our greatest enemies. I don't think it's necessarily the diagnosis. I think it may be us. Because if we are in a fight or flight response, and your nervous system only has 2 modes. It's got fight or flight, it's got rest and digest. That's it. If you're not in one, you're in the other. When you're in a fight or flight response, your body is preparing for combat or preparing to run away from combat. That's what it is. You know, you're walking through the savannah in Africa and a lion comes out. Your first response is freeze. And then the next response is either going to be, you're going to engage the lion to try to defeat it, or you're going to run away.
Right.
So that's it. Now, when your body moves into a fight or flight response, all of your major systems of your body, and I mean by systems, your immune system, your reproductive system, your endocrine system, your digestive system, all of these systems send energy to your muscles so that you can run or fight. Makes perfect sense. If you're going into a fight or flight response because of an unexpected bill or something that your boss said to you, or you're arguing with your wife over the dishes, you're going to move into that same state of the nervous system, but it's not going to help you to have more energy in your muscles. And it's sure as hell not going to do any good for you to have your immune system diminished.
Right.
If you're fighting cancer or some other invasive disease, it's not going to help you to have your blood pressure go up if you're dealing with cardiovascular issues. It's not going to help you to have your digestive system impacted if you're dealing with something that's going on with your digestive system, and same with your endocrine system. So this is how stress kills people. This is one of the ways. It diminishes the very systems you need for health. And then there's another element which is called epigenetics, EPI, epigenetics. Epi is Greek for above, so it means above genetics. And what this ultimately means is that your genetic expression, these are the good genes that bring health and the bad genes which bring disease. You can upregulate, turn on, or downregulate either one of them.
Yeah.
How do you do that? All you have to do is hold a negative state where you're in fight or flight for a long enough period of time, and you will downregulate your healthy genes and upregulate your genes for diseases. The opposite is true. You hold a calm, peaceful rest and digest state long enough, and you'll do the reverse. You'll upregulate the good ones, downregulate the bad ones. This is all scientifically proven.
Yes.
And it's based on your emotional state. Because that system, the fight or flight system, was designed for that scenario that I painted. You're walking through the savannah in Africa and a lion comes out. It's not designed to be chronically in that state. Either the lion's going to kill you, or you're going to kill the lion, or you're going to escape. But within 20 minutes or an hour, you're supposed to be back to baseline.
Right.
You're not supposed to just be there constantly. And I'm convinced that this is one, not the only, one of the factors, important factors behind the epidemic of obesity and chronic disease in our country. You and I are old enough to remember. I remember being in a gym class in junior high school, in grade school, and there'd be one overweight kid that they called Husky in the class. 1 out of 25.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. I remember this like all the way through the 90s. Sometime in the 2000s, this all changed. And again, there are many reasons for this, but one of them is this chronic state of stress. where people are emotionally eating, their digestive system is destroyed. They're dumping cortisol into their bloodstream, and the cortisol is telling their body, hold on to all available fat.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you and I mean, seriously, everything that you said, I'm with you on 100% on that. Because I've watched my health change so much in a good positive way. I mean, I was someone that always did their best to take care of themselves, lift always in the gym, bodybuilding, as active as possible, playing a lot of sports. When I went through an 8-year weekend addiction, I watched my body change, the stress level that I had at my job. I watched me completely change, but not knowing it at
Mm-hmm.
right. It was
Yep.
being done. I just didn't realize it. And then in 2009, when everything started shifted for me and changing, I mean, I weighed 198 pounds in 2009. I've never weighed that much my entire life. And I had a double chin. And if I looked down, I couldn't see my toes because my belly was blocked.
Wow.
You,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the heck just happened to me? Someone who's always been in shape. But again, I feel like a lot of that stress. And then, of course, my weekend partying, snorting cocaine and drinking all the time wasn't helping either.
No.
And when I finally shifted that and started learning who I was at the time, who I did not want to be, and I've been working on myself and learning how the brain works and learning how to shift things. And it's taken a long time, right? 2009 was the beginning of my journey. Here we are
Mm-hmm.
in 2026. I'm still learning. I will always continue to learn and
Yeah.
things out, right? I'm not the same person today that I was last week at all, period. And yeah, it's when we can shift it and understand it. And it takes time, right? Because we spend the majority of our lives in that. And I think that's one of the reasons too why I don't watch the news. I stay away from all this negative bombardment of stuff that's coming in because my version of it, it's keeping us sick, right? Because we do get worried about it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a shortage of toilet paper. Oh my hell, what are we going to do now? I don't know what to do, and we start getting in all these panics. And again, we're in that fight or flight mode constantly.
Yeah.
We're draining our battery extremely quick. It's like leaving the lights on 24/7
Yeah.
constantly. Eventually that light bulb's going to go out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And and so much of it is done on purpose. I mean, at a very basic level, the motto of the local news has always been, if it bleeds, it leads. And your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between an imaginary threat or a threat that is happening somewhere out in the world that you're not exposed to and it actually happening to you.
Yes.
And this is why people who have advertised and marketed movies like action films for years have called the action film a seat of your pants roller coaster thrill ride. Why? Because they know that the film is going to activate your nervous system. Because your subconscious mind cannot distinguish the guy jumping out of the closet with a knife on screen, 2 dimensions, from the real thing.
Right.
Only your conscious mind can. And that's 5% of your brain's processing power. And it's not in charge of your autonomic nervous system. Your subconscious mind is. And that's why your heart starts pounding when the person's walking into the room and you know the killer's in there.
Yeah.
That's why your hands start gripping the armrests. That's why you're saying to yourself, no, 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 no. Don't go in that room, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you're being activated. So what do you think's happening when you watch the local news? If it bleeds, it leads. What do you think's happening when you watch the news about all the chaos that's happening in the world? And P.S., chaos has always occurred in the world. Always. It's
Yeah.
just human beings didn't have access 24/7 to all the catastrophes. And once again, in our lifetime, I remember, you probably do too, when television went off at like 1 in the morning. They just put a test pattern up.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And you probably had access to like 6 or 7 channels that was all coming in over the rabbit ear antennas. You didn't
Yeah.
have cable with hundreds of channels or Wi-Fi. This
Yeah.
is all brand new in the human experience. Our bodies are not set up for this.
No, they're not. They're not, definitely not. With all this, Peter, so you do the hypnosis, right?
Yes.
So how is it what you do? How do you help bring people back to ground, per se?
So the focus of my practice is root cause healing of trauma. And if we were car mechanics and somebody brought a car to us because it had symptoms, smoke coming out of the engine, pulling to the right, making some weird noise, our job would not be to mask the symptoms. We would only care about the symptoms insofar as it would maybe trigger in our mind, oh, okay, so there's smoke coming out of the engine. That means that some kind of liquid is spilling onto something hot. What could that be? Well, it's got to be some of these hoses. That's what we'd start looking at. And we'd dig through the bowels of the engine until we found the hose that was cracked or otherwise damaged, and it was spraying something wet onto something hot, right? Once we fix that, the symptom's going to go away. We don't have to say, oh, gee, we should install a fan to blow away the smoke so they can see when they're going down the road.
You're not going to
It's
write them a
this
prescription?
It's the same thing with us. We're just more sophisticated. If you've got a symptom, and most people do, and it could be anger, it could be grief, it could be some kind of fear, right? A whole host of things. That ain't the problem. There's something deeper in the bowels of the engine that is actually creating that. And what we want to do is find out what that thing is in your mind, in the past. Once we heal that, guess what? It's going to get a lot better or it's going to go away. That's what I do. That's my focus.
Yeah. And I love how you put that because again, that's how my training was, right? It's about the brain first approach. And being involved in the recovery community, the addiction community, we've heard it said many, many, many times, it's the addiction isn't the problem. That's just the Band-Aid. We're just putting the Band-Aid over really whatever is inside of us from. And unfortunately, the woman that I loved with every beat of my soul, she battled with that. It was just she didn't like me calling but I did call them demons. I'm like, what are these demons that are inside you that keeps drawing you back to going back to what you're going back to? And so I wish I would have known now or known then what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that maybe I could have made a difference because her choices were still her choices. I wouldn't be able to lead her in any direction she didn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
However, maybe some of my tools could have helped just a little bit. So I love that you put it the way that you put it, and using the engine and the hoses and the smoke is a really good analogy for it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to say that maybe the reason you have these tools is because of what she went through.
Oh yeah, amen to that. I mean, this is the whole reason for the podcast, right? I give the credit of the podcast really to her, because what we went through together as a couple,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want other people to make that same mistake. And that's what gave me the idea of doing the show and calling it The Other Side of Addiction, being on the other side of the addiction, even though I
Yeah.
did have my own battle, years before.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just to help understand. And I mean, again, since 2009, here I have been working on me a lot, going back and saying, man, what are all these emotions? What are all these pieces of tape around hoses, duct tape and wire that's been holding shit together for so long, instead of just going, let's just take care of the issue and let's not worry about it again. Even though it's subconscious, as we said, it can still bring it back, right? Anything can bring it back. A smell, a song,
Yes.
in something outside, somebody says something to us, anything can bring that. I'm trying to find a different word for it, but right now it's trigger. Anything can trigger us to go back.
That's the word that's used. Yeah.
That's the word to choose.
And
Yeah.
and our society's approach is to shield people from the triggers,
Yeah. Right.
which is asinine. Because as you said, anything can be a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
We should take this and say, okay, where's the pain? Where's the wound? Let's heal the wound. We don't have to give a shit about the triggers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the other thing that I've got to be in my bonnet about is with this concept of shielding people from triggers is that there's a presupposition that people are so weak, they're so frail, they're so scared, they're so incapable that you have to protect them against the zenith of this for me is like a college student. You don't have to read page 263 of this classic novel because there's a depiction of X on that page, as though you're so pathetic, you're so weak, you're so incapable, you cannot deal with, the trauma of life as depicted through fiction.
Yes.
When your ancestors, yours and mine, everyone's, went through things that we cannot possibly imagine and came out the other side. That's the reason you're sitting where you are and I am where I am. We should be focusing on our capabilities, not our weaknesses. We are capable of way more than we are given credit for. And I think that this is done on purpose because a weak society is an easily controllable society.
Amen.
And whether you weaken the people spiritually, which I think is really the big one, or you weaken them mentally or emotionally or physically, you create a weak, docile population. And it starts with, oh no, you can't handle reading page 163 of Gone with the Wind. Come on.
Yep.
Of course you can. And for most of human history, we've made statues to people who are courageous, right? We've extolled heroes, people who were able to take on challenges and come out the other side, because each one of us is a hero. There's a hero inside all of us waiting to come out. And we need to know that through other people's stories like yours, right? Of that it's possible. And to tap on that part when you're trying to deal with an addiction. To tap on that part when you're struggling in your marriage. To tap on that part when you've been diagnosed with a potentially lethal or fatal disease. That's the real you.
Yes.
Not the you that has to run and hide from page 163.
Yeah. I love that you use Gone with the Wind. That's awesome. You know, it's my buddy Cap. I've got a good friend by the name of Cap, and we remodeled houses together. He was the electrician. And we got this job where we literally stripped this huge house right at the bottom of Little Cottonwood Canyon, which is a beautiful area here in our Wasatch Mountains. And we actually tore one whole top section of the top floor out. And anyway, the homeowners had taken all their stuff out and they moved some stuff in the basement because they lived in the basement while we did the middle floor and the upstairs. And a lot of stuff went in their garage and storage. Well, what's crazy is there was this mirror on the wall. And the homeowners were like, well, we don't want you to throw that mirror away because we had a big dumpster outside where we'd throw all our wood and sheetrock and everything we're ripping out and remodeling. And we're like, okay, so we took it down. What's crazy is that mirror, Peter, never moved the whole time we remodeled it. All the other furniture was gone, but a freaking mirror. So if we worked in one area, if that mirror was there, we'd move the mirror and would put it in a different room and would do our work. And if we went to that one, we'd move it to another room. Good news is we never broke the mirror. However, my buddy Cap and I, we would get in some really deep conversations, kind of like what we're doing today. And my buddy Cap come up. I was struggling with some stuff because my wife was going through some things and we're talking and he's like, hey, brother, what's the message in the mirror? And I went, oh shit, that's deep. Holy cow. And so every day, every single morning that we showed up at this job site, we would ask each other, what was your day like yesterday? What happened? Basically, what was your message in the mirror? Which means, what was our lesson? What did we figure out? Whether something good happened to us, whether something crappy happened to us, whether we just had a pretty relaxed day or whatever. And we still use that whenever we see each other to this day or talk or text. A lot of times we'll throw that out. It's like, hey, brother, what's your message in the mirror, Ben?
Love it.
It's like that. Was it, well, was it Snow White? Was it Snow White that had the Wicked Witch with the mirror or mirror, mirror on the wall or
That
whatever?
sounds right. Yeah.
One of those, yeah. So it kind of reminded me of that. And it's how we perceive how we want to look at things, right? And there is a message behind everything. You touched on it. My 12-year-old granddaughter even touched on it, saying, Papa, life would be boring if we didn't have bad things happen to us. 12-year-old little girl. I'm like, holy crap, how did you figure this out at 12? You know, she's like, life would be boring. How would we
It's
grow?
because she's closer to
Mm,
where she came from than you and I are.
yes.
That's the answer.
I never thought of it that way, Peter. Yes. Holy cow. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, we use that a lot. I really love that analogy. And it
Well,
is,
and you know what else it is?
what's that?
It is a representation of the Hermetic law of correspondence. So
Mm,
the Hermetic laws, there are seven, explain how the universe functions. And the Hermetic law of correspondence is as above, so below, as within, so without. So when you look at the mirror, you are looking within
yes, you are.
because your within controls your without.
Oh, I got to write that one down.
You walk out of the house angry, guess what you're going to experience that day?
So you're within, how was it again that you put it? You're within.
Well, it starts with as above, so below. That's in the Bible.
Okay.
But then the second part of it is as within, so without.
As within, so without. I love that.
Correct. Instead of getting angry at the outside world, which is like getting angry at your reflection in the mirror,
Hmm.
your power is within. If you want to change your external world, you have to change your internal world.
Yes.
So the looking in the mirror to me is like look inside for the answers. What's going on inside of you? Because that's going to govern what happens outside of you.
That's deep. I really love that. You know, and I want to throw out there to the listeners really quick. We're coming up on the hour, and I want you to mention your YouTube channel here really quick too.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my morning routines, which has been one of my morning routines probably for about the last, I don't know, I'd say maybe 4 months. I look at myself in the mirror eye to eye, which is hard to do at the beginning. Really, really hard. And tell yourself how much you love you. And tell yourself today's a beautiful day. And I just say thank you to my father, who I call God. You know, thank you for waking me up. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if I'll see this whole day, but thank you for waking me up. You know, and it starts my day off. I'm getting teary-eyed even just thinking about it because it starts
Yeah.
my day off in such a great way. You know, just to know that I can wake up and look at myself and for the first time in my life say, I love you because I do. And it's taken a lot of work to get there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it feels so good, you know. And then I also tell myself, hey, today I'm going to help someone. I don't know who. It might be something I say, it might be just a smile, it might be just a hug, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But if I can do that, God, please let me be there for them, you know.
Wow. I
And
love
it's
it.
just,
Yeah.
it's amazing how the day starts off. So if I get a shit ball thrown at me and it does hit me square in the face, it's not near as nasty as it was before because I started
Yeah.
my day out nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So tell us about your YouTube channel really quick here.
Okay, YouTube channel is BlueSky Hypnosis. It's got over 200 pieces of content on there. It's obviously all free. You can use most of it to address various things in your life. It's 130,000 subscribers at this point. It's got 17 million views. The two most popular topics are in order weight loss. So that's the one that has, I think, 5 tracks, and each one has over 1 million views. And the next most popular content would be spiritual matters. So past life regression, meeting your spirit guide, spirit council, things like that, removing negative spiritual entities and so on. And then my websites are blueskyhypnosis.com, also kind of the same name, and then my name, petermclaughlin.com.
Okay. So do when you sent me your stuff, I don't remember, you know, are those websites and that on your information that you sent me?
They should be. Yeah. If they're not, just let me know.
Okay, because I want to make sure I put them on the show notes so people
Okay.
have.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Okay.
should be there. Yep.
Okay. I'll double check. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners, Peter?
The famous Swiss psychologist Carl Jung has a quote that I think is really valuable for everyone, and that is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate.
Wow. Man, I got to think on that one. Holy cow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's what you were talking about at the outset. When you
Yeah,
start to gain control and start asking it, where are these thoughts coming from? You're starting the process of making the unconscious conscious. And by doing that, you're gaining back control. It's not running you anymore. And this is why that whole thing that we said earlier, when there's a tragedy, when something awful happens, we are all programmed to say, why? Why me? When you can answer that question, you have made the unconscious conscious.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
That's been
welcome.
the best ones that I've heard so far in quite a while at the end of
Oh,
it.
wow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Peter, thank you again for reaching out to me. I really do appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I've learned some things. That's what's cool about being a host of a show like this is I get to learn a lot and pick up on some new things that I can add now in my life. I've got a whole page of stuff that I wrote down too, so I can go back in and go, okay, I need to look at this a little bit different coming in, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to
my
say thank
pleasure.
you to Emergo Academy again, David, Susan, Kenny. Thank you guys for supporting us, supporting me. I just greatly appreciate it. I want to say thank you to all our past guests and our future guests that are coming on the show. And most of all, I just want to say thank you to all our listeners. You guys are the ones that's keeping this thing going, and you don't know how much I love and appreciate your guys' support. We're going to leave you with this. Remember, the storm isn't here to stop you. It's here to reveal you. Don't run from it. Walk through it. Because on the other side isn't just survival, it's the person you were always meant to become. Until next time, keep walking through the storm.